Hello. So this is week 46 in Intuitive Momentum Fitness. So really happy that you are here, and I just got distracted looking at myself. So a couple weeks ago, there was this half of my tooth that was gone. I don't remember it like breaking. It never hurt. I don't remember chewing on anything hard or crunchy. So that's strange, but if it's distracting, I apologize. But happy to be here with you. And yeah, we're kind of talking about death and rebirth, which is how I believe we expand and we continue to evolve, if you want to use that word, into a more authentic, genuine, full version of who we are. Like all of our growth comes from no longer being who we have been, and letting go of those patterns. A lot of times as adults, we get stuck in patterns, and 95% of what we do and think each day is the same. So breaking out of those patterns is a huge part of growth and expansion and becoming everything that we desire to be, everything that we choose to be. So the image that I posted was a quote: "Your life at this moment is shifting in proportion to how fast you can surrender your old self for your new self." And I had somebody comment when I posted something similar to this a few weeks ago. It was on my personal page, and they said, "I've known you a long time. You've always been a good person." And so when we're talking about death and rebirth and letting go of the old and choosing the new, it's not that who you were was a bad person or less than, but we are made to expand and grow, just like a tree as it grows and expands, and especially when you think of the amazing, couple 100-year-old oak trees that are massive, and that they've been through a lot of experiences. They've got a lot of history. They know a lot of things. If you were to go back in time 150 years and see the young oak tree, you wouldn't think it was a bad tree or less than. It was what it was. But if we stay at where we are, we're kind of going against our natural instinct, our natural impulse, our urge to grow and expand. So we always want to allow the growing and the expanding. So last week we talked about what is the process of intuitive change. The traditional approach is to kind of look at, okay, what's the right way to do it, and then just do it, whether it feels good or not, whether it aligns or not, whether it whether you are taking yourself into consideration, like all parts of you or not. So the more intuitive approach to changing, whether it's your diet or your exercise routine, is what are your goals, understanding your goals. What are the goals on the one side? What are you currently doing? And what aspects of what you're currently doing align with your goals? What aspects do not align with your goals? what of the aspects that do not align with your goals are you at this moment willing to change, ready emotionally, mentally, physically ready to change. Don't worry about the ones that you're not ready to change. Focus on the ones that you are ready to change. Make a plan, and then be consistent in executing that plan. And that's how I like to do the nutrition piece, because there truly are so many different things that seem to work well for people, but the basics is always real food. So what's going to be the most nutrient dense food? That's how you're going to support yourself. So if you look at your routine and you're eating a lot of foods that are not nutrient dense and you know that aren't aligned with your goals, of those foods and drinks, which ones are you emotionally, mentally ready to change, or which ones you are not? Of the ones you are ready to change, what would be a good substitute for those? So substitute those, make a grocery list, make a meal plan, or at least some meal ideas, and then be consistent with that. And no longer purchase the things that you are mentally, emotionally ready to let go of. Just, it's not a part of your life anymore. Because as you begin to move toward your goals and feel like you have aligned, then you're going to be feeling better in your body. It's going to feel good to be closer to your goals. And you won't be missing those particular foods that you have already replaced. So that's kind of like the review of the intuitive approach that we talked about last week in relation to food. So today I'm going to be responding to Nadie, Lorrie, and Julie, who commented, and they brought up some really good things. So we're gonna dive into that, those comments and questions. So Nadie says, first, yes to the simple reminders. Thank you for those. So I had listed off last week the simple things that work, the 10 simple things that work. And so even when nothing was working for me at the beginning of my health journey, and I wasn't seeing any benefit, like no improvement, I was like, well, logically, I do know that these things are good for me and not bad for me. So I'm going to keep doing them until I hopefully see something. And if not, I know that it's good for me. So what are these things? So breathing deeply, drinking more water, self-soothing, like calming the nervous system, getting good sleep, eating real food, moving and stretching, lifting heavy things, because nothing else tells the body to keep the bone and muscle that it has other than lifting heavy things to fatigue. Self-compassion, practicing gratitude, and community and purpose. So making sure that the people that you have in your life are, for the most part, and if possible, supporting your energy, and then remembering your purpose. So it's not necessarily some grandiose external thing, but what makes you come alive? What do you love to do? What makes you feel the most vibrant and vital? And keep doing those things. That's your purpose. So yeah, we talked about that in greater detail last week. So that's what Nadie is mentioning or referring to when she says, first, yes to the simple reminders. Thank you for those. So she responds further. Highlights for this last week: started taking my water intake seriously. The guides also came in for me about that in the oracle cards. That's awesome. I have a water distiller that is collecting dust, and I whipped that baby out and started using it again along with mineral drops. I'd say the difference is palpable, I'm feeling even more aware and embodied just from this one shift. I had a gnarly fizzy water addiction I'm kicking due to it as well. Fresh, clean, alkaline water truly is a blessing. Yes, so as I said last week, water is the number one ingredient in the body. And so when you're dehydrated even a little bit, it makes a big difference in brain function, all of the hormonal interactions in your body, muscular contractions, fatigue, just everything starts downgrading. And I wish I could remember this one statistic. I think it was like at a certain percentage of dehydration, you start exhibiting the symptoms of Alzheimer's, which is crazy. So I will have to look that up and see what that was. But water, so important and really, really valuable to have that as a baseline habit of getting sufficient water intake, which is at least half an ounce per pound of body weight. All right, so Nadie goes on to say, and there it is, I'm experiencing way more gratitude for my little acts of self-love. I'm also beginning to stare my habit of wanting to outsource my love via saving others right in the face and alchemize it. Self-love comes first. Death, rebirth. So, so she's talking about being grateful for the water, the clean water, and that's one of the other simple habits that is so beneficial for our well-being. Just expressing gratitude, looking for the things that we can be grateful for. What you look for, you find. What you focus on, you get more of. So just based on that, unless there's something specific that you need to address and deal with, which is totally fine, whatever it is, however overwhelming and gnarly it is, focusing on the things that you're grateful for when you can be is a huge boost to your health and well-being. And then she is talking about her habit of wanting to outsource her love via saving others. And that's an amazing insight. As empaths, it's very easy to be aware of others and then also to feel overly responsible for others as well. There's that verse in the Bible that was kind of realized could be used abusively, that he that knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. So in like my young mind, I went to endless lengths of guilt and I think just lots and lots of false guilt over knowing how I could help someone and not doing it or not being able to or whatever, because I was just naturally so aware of all the things that people needed. And it took me a long time to realize that I cannot become someone else's savior for them. Like, we are all the hero of our own story. We were given our lives. We were given our bodies. We are responsible for us. No one else on the planet can be more responsible for me than me. Same for everyone else. And so if I'm to exercise my sovereignty and grant to everyone else, encourage everyone else to own their sovereignty, then I need to remember whose responsibility things are. And sometimes that means that I let someone deal with their stuff because it's not my stuff. And it's not helpful for me to come in and try to rescue them. So yeah, that's a great point, Nadie. Thank you for mentioning that habit of outsourcing her love via saving others. So yeah, great point. So low light, she says, not super low, but I've been resistant to the day 4 push-up exercise. I kind of half-assed it and disassociated, so it's still on the docket. What's coming up for me is a trauma flashback to when I was a 5-year-old and my sensei used knuckle push-ups as punishment for the class fooling around. 100 knuckle push-ups to be exact. So that is, like, I just have to take a side note and take a pause and comment on that. That's like, just, it's so common and yet so brutal and really so abusive. So I actually got to teach PE at a private school for 3 years, and in PE and in sports and martial arts, it's so common to have some kind of physical exercise be punishment. And I think that's terrible because as kids get out of those sports, then they have this really strong association and they're just never going to do those things again because they don't want to be in trouble. They don't want to be the bad kid anymore. So of course they're just never going to do walking lunges or run laps or do push-ups when those simple things are so beneficial and so helpful for a foundation of strength that they should be doing for the rest of their life. So that's just really sad, a really big bummer to me that that exercise is ever used as punishment. So she goes on to say, I believe before that moment, I had a natural talent for movement and fitness in general, and I knocked those push-ups out, no problem. That being said, my solution to that kind of harsh treatment was to quit, pretty much stop taking any form of disciplined exercise at all too seriously. So that's exactly what I was saying. Like, of course, you're just going to want to stop. And so the positive spin on that is that was your version of self-care. That was your setting boundaries when you needed to set boundaries. So that is awesome. And you can applaud yourself for, that aspect of standing up for yourself, setting your boundaries as you were able to, as you knew how to do in that period of your life. And so now, hopefully, you can be brave enough to move back into that situation, feel those feelings, allow those feelings, bless those feelings, and then release those feelings after making friends with them. Kind of release the shame that comes up, as being punished. Maybe there's some guilt in there. Maybe there's some fear of doing something wrong. It sounds like everyone was punished for the class fooling around, so not necessarily even you fooling around. So there's a lot of possible emotions and associations that are tied up in that. So, so after like being with it and releasing it, then I hope that you can be brave in reassociating push-ups with your power and being proud of yourself and, not having to do 100 knuckle push-ups, but be proud of 5 or 10 or 15 against the counter, whatever feels good, both physically and energetically, spiritually. So, just kind of ease your way back into it and have a lot of grace for yourself. And so it sounds like you did a few of those push-ups on day 4, and I'm assuming that was either Sunday or Monday. So you're probably a few days on. But yeah, each time you come back to the push-up day, just do what you can and let it be what it is. And kind of feel your way into it. Do as much as you can process the emotions that come up, and then leave it for the next time you come back to it. And she goes on to say, all that said, I'm happy to be facing that 25-year-old wound finally. This is certainly a space where integration and healing can take place if we are open to it, and I certainly am. Yes, good job. Thank you for sharing that. I know that's going to be helpful for all of us hearing and learning how to apply that to our situation, because we all have negative associations with exercise. And oftentimes, for anyone that's experienced trauma and has the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses, there can be an association with just elevated heart rate and fatigued muscles. Like when you feel trauma response and you move into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn, your muscles are primed to move. Your heart rate goes up, your eyes go wide, and all that can happen while you're exercising. So exercise can be really triggering, and that could be why some people absolutely avoid exercise. So have a lot of patience with yourself, a lot of grace for yourself. Be aware, bring it into the conscious, invite these unconscious reactions and emotional flashbacks into the conscious, and be with yourself in those experiences and process that with yourself from a loving perspective, because there's multiple aspects of you. Usually there's the you that was the age whenever you experienced a similar trauma that comes to the forefront. And then there's also the you in the present that has learned all kinds of things and has overcome all kinds of things. So bring all aspects of yourself into your conscious awareness and kind of have a committee meeting or a therapy session within your being as those things come up. So lots of self-compassion, lots of patience, lots of self-love. So good job, Nadie. Thank you for sharing all those things with us. So then Lorrie says, I always, she emphasizes always, think of you, Kyler, whenever I lift anything heavy. I was unable to lift anything for a few years after my pelvic floor went all wacky, and I'm very grateful to be able to do it again carefully. That's awesome. So good job, Lorrie, for lifting heavy things. I love that. And the reason I talk about that all the time is because I don't think people talk about it enough, or that people are aware enough, because a lot of people are very active, and that's great. They're active into old age. They might play basketball or tennis or pickleball, consistently for years and years and years. But nothing signals to the bone and the muscle that it needs to keep the bone and muscle that it has, or needs to increase the bone and muscle that it has, beside lifting heavy things. And that could be your own body weight, could be resistance bands, it could be dumbbells, could be strength machines. So any kind of resistance that challenges your muscles and causes your muscles to reach fatigue, that is the only thing that will signal to your body to keep the muscle it has and to get a little bit stronger. The reason you want to get a little bit stronger is because if you're not regularly lifting heavy things, you're losing your bone and your muscle density. So however many years it's been since, for some people, since they jumped fences and gave other kids piggyback rides and hung from playground monkey bars and did other forms of strength training that kids do, sometimes it's been since then that someone has lifted heavy things consistently. And so since then, their muscle and bone density has been going down little by little by little. And metabolism is most related to muscle and bone density. So metabolism has been going down all those years. And the reason why people stay the same weight for a really long time is because they are losing muscle mass and gaining body fat, but it's not enough to make them change shape yet. They just get softer and really are unaware that that anything has changed in their body composition and that metabolism is going down. And then they reach a certain amount of muscle and bone loss and certain loss of metabolism and certain gain of body fat, and it just starts going faster and faster and faster. And so people think that it doesn't start until their 40s or 50s, and they just think, oh man, it sucks to be this old because like my body sure just went to shit. And that's not really true. It's been like changing the whole time. They just weren't aware of it. And it really is down to the simple things. So being consistent with even just something as simple as push-ups against the counter, body weight squats, and pull up if you can do that, or resistance band row. Those 3 exercises include or recruit participation from every major muscle group in the body. So even if you were just to do those 3 things each week, then that would be enough to signal to your body to keep the muscle and bone density that it has. And then if you're reaching fatigue with it, then your body is going to get a little bit stronger. Your bones are going to get a little denser. So that's why I'm always saying lift heavy things, because that is the key. Because even in the research that has been done between the older adults that have been active, like the tennis players and the basketball players that keep playing into their 70s, 80s, 90s, and then the lifters that are lifting into their 70s, 80s, and 90s. There's a massive difference between the two, because most of the symptoms of aging are actually symptoms of frailty. And only strength training will tell your body to keep the bone and muscle mass that it has, and is the only way to avoid frailty. Because even runners or bikers, like it doesn't take that much. It doesn't take much bone muscle density to be able to run or bike. So your body still doesn't think it needs to keep it. So that's my little tangent. So I'm glad, Lorrie, you always think of me when you lift heavy things. And then you got your pelvic floor strength back, which is amazing. So engaging your core, bracing your stomach like someone's about to punch you in the stomach. Whenever you do your squats, engage your core. When you do your push-ups, engage your core. Whenever you squat down to lift something from the floor, engage your core. That's why any variation on the plank is going to be more effective than any variation on the crunch or the sit-up, because the crunch and the sit-up is just working surface muscles, while the plank is working all core stabilization muscles down to the little muscles that are all around the spine. So plank movements are really beneficial, really valuable. So and if you're doing push-ups against the counter or push-ups on the floor, that's a variation on a plank as well. So you are getting some core activation through those push-ups also. So thank you, Lorrie. And then Julie says, I would appreciate prayers and support this week as tomorrow I go back to work after being off for having COVID. And I would have to look to see what day she posted this. 1 day ago. So that means that she's back at work today. All right, so Julie, when you're watching this, we are thinking of you, and we're glad that you're feeling better after having COVID. Yeah, we're thinking of you on your first day back at work. So she gives some more context here. Being off for almost 2 weeks, I've gotten so much rest, ability to sleep as long as I need, and lots of time with my hubby. I'm a little nervous as I head into tomorrow, having to jump back into a full routine with early mornings, working with people, and all the troubleshooting work brings. Before this, I had painstakingly built a routine step by step, going very slowly so it could be sustainable. And I honestly don't know if I will be back to survival mode of just work and sleep, or if I will have some endurance to just get back into the swing of things. Yeah, she was doing a great job of like taking 5-minute walks a couple times a day or once or twice a day when she could, and then getting one little exercise in each day, and then fine-tuning her meals. So yeah, anyways, I'm just a little scared and hoping that I don't have to start from scratch again. So Julie, we are thinking of you. What I encouraged her in the comments, because I commented on this one, was that there's so much for, most of us in this group, we are empathics. A lot of us are introverted. A lot of us have sensory overwhelm. And so a normal 40-hour-a-week job is going to hit us a lot harder than it's going to hit other people. And there's really, really good reason for that. So there's the empath narcissist scale, the introvert extrovert scale, and then the sensory overwhelm and the sensory underwhelm scale. And I want to explain each one of those so you can understand like how you are draining more energy throughout your day than other people. And it's not your fault. You're not lazy. You aren't being socially backward or anything like that. This is really your personality and like your gifts, if you can see the gifts of them. But also like they are drawbacks in a narcissistic, extroverted, sensory underwhelm world. And I'll explain each of those. So you're probably familiar with the first two. So empath, narcissist, and introvert, extrovert. So empath naturally is going to be in tune with people around them, even more so than being in tune with themselves. So this is a little bit what Nadie was talking about in having to get balance again and not spend so much time taking care of everyone else, but prioritizing herself. So the narcissist on the other end of the scale, just personality scale, it might be clinical, it might be abusive, but sometimes it's just personality. So the narcissist is much more in tune with themselves in their own world than they are with the emotional experience of other people. So it's very easy for the empath to kind of get sucked into the narcissist's world because the narcissist thinks a lot of themselves and the empath thinks a lot of other people, and they just kind of like get sucked into their whirlwind or whirlpool and totally distracted from living their own life and being in tune with their own life and in tune with their own goals and all those things. So it's not necessarily like a character flaw on the part of the empath. It's a natural propensity and something they have to be aware of. And so the empath has to become a little bit more narcissistic to reach balance, which can be scary for the empath because, they're becoming more narcissistic than they've ever been in their life, and it feels horrifying sometimes, but they're really coming into balance. So that's the first category. Second category is introvert extrovert. So this is all about energy. So introvert doesn't mean socially awkward. It can coincide with that, but it's not the same thing. It also doesn't mean antisocial. So the introvert just gets their energy from being alone, and their energy gets drained from being around people, however much they may love being around people. So I'm very much a people person, but I get wiped out, it seems like, any more than 4 or 5 hours around people. So I need a lot of alone time, and that's totally fine. Like the extrovert gets energy from being around people and can get super depressed if they're not around people. And so too much alone time for the extrovert can be devastating. So all of that means we just need to understand ourselves a little bit better and figure out whether we are completely drained, peopled out, visited enough, and need to take some alone time. So then the last category is something I read in Susan Cain's book called Quiet, and it's all about the power of the introvert. And if you think that might be interesting or helpful for you, look up her TED Talk first on YouTube, all about her book Quiet, and it is amazing. Just that 15-20 minute talk is brilliant, and then her book is very, very detailed and helped me see how much I can value myself as an introvert. So, but one of the things that she talked about was that something that goes along with introversion, extroversion, but is not necessarily the same thing, is sensory overwhelm and sensory underwhelm. And so it's more of a chemical thing in the brain. So there was this experiment with babies, and they took these infants that were, before they could talk, and they were in these like car seat type seats, and they were placed in the middle of a room that was kind of dark, that had limited lighting, so that the baby only could focus and only have one thing to look at. And so they would either show a cartoon, or have a puppet, or a rattle, or a bell, or different things. So they had different things to kind of entertain the baby and see how the baby responded. So some of the babies, whenever there was stimulation, they kicked their legs and they waved their arms and they made sounds, cooed, yelled, talked, cried, or whatever. So they responded physically and audibly to the stimulation. And then other babies just sat there and stared at what was in front of them. And so they tracked these babies, and most of the babies that responded, kicking their legs, moving their hands, making sounds, grew up to be introverts. And most of the babies that just sat there and stared grew up to be extroverts. And the reason is that for most of the introverted babies, they had a lot, like their sensory input in the brain was turned way up, meaning that just normal everyday life was stimulating enough, and sometimes overstimulating. And then the babies that just sat there and stared, their sensory input portions of their brain, the chemicals, were turned way down, so that they needed a lot more stimulation to be stimulated. So these are the people that love loud concerts, bright lights, thrilling roller coaster rides, lots of being around lots of people, lots of stimulation of every kind, lights and noise and people and interactions and activity and adrenaline junkies, all those things. So they are the sensory underwhelmed people that need a lot of stimulation in order to feel alive. And then the sensory overwhelmed people are the ones that feel too much sensory input all the time. And so just as a reminder, it doesn't always coincide with introvert, extrovert, but most of the time it aligns in the same way. So if you take a person that is on the one extreme of all three, so empathic, so already naturally living in everyone else's emotional experience over their own, introverted, so they don't get energy from being around people, however much they may enjoy it, and then sensory overwhelm, like everyday life is already stimulating enough, and that person goes into a normal job environment, they are going to be so drained of energy compared to the person that's on the opposite end of each of those scales. So again, it's not laziness or lack of drive or lack of life purpose or anything else for you to be experiencing overwhelm. And I'm thinking specifically of Julie going back to work and kind of feeling really nervous and overwhelmed about that. Like, it may be something that you choose as a goal in your life soon to specifically seek out a part-time position. You know, if you can do that financially and realistically with everything that's going on between you and your hubby, that may be the best option for you, for your well-being, for your self-care, or moving into a work position that allows you to honor those unique aspects of you. So this is obviously not something that would be a quick fix. This would be a long-term goal and objective, but something so valuable, so worth looking into and pursuing. So I hope that you will look at that. And then also, like I said in the comment to you yesterday, so yeah, just really as you are going back to work today and this week, really tune into where you feel like you lose energy. What aspects wear you out, and what do you need to do to recharge yourself? And that will kind of give you a clue as to how much work you can do, or what type of work you can do, or any kind of modification that you need to make it ideal for yourself. So you are worth making those modifications for. So so try to get your walks in, your alone time. Sometimes, for me, putting in earbuds and listening to music or a story helps me get away from the overstimulation from outside. So maybe utilizing that. And then trying to make sure that you still get your one strength exercise in each day. If you can do a couple sets, that's fine, but at least the one. So your body is still trying to get stronger, and then all of the deep breathing, all of the water, meal prep when you are able to. Make everything as easy for yourself as possible. That's why, like, anything that was pre-packaged but reasonably still like real food, healthy, I would take advantage of those things, because I was also for a long time working multiple jobs or working and going to school, and I was meal prepping all of my meals for the week. So when I was eating a lot more vegetables, I can tell you about that later, but I would get a lot of frozen vegetables, because when they harvest and freeze those, they do that right when the vegetables are, or the fruit, are most ripe. And so then they flash freeze it and then ship it out. And if it stays frozen the whole time, then it's going to be as fresh as you can get without, going out and picking it yourself. Because most of the time when you buy fresh food from the store, fresh fruits and vegetables, it was picked a long time ago. It was picked days, weeks ago. It's not as fresh as it once was. And then when you get it home, it still might be days before you get it out and eat it. So, so frozen is not a bad option, and it was way more convenient. I could just dump some broccoli in a pan of water and steam it a little bit, and it was ready to go, and it made it simple. So keep things simple for yourself. Keep all of your health habits simple for yourself. Set yourself up for success. I have 2 of these 32 ounce, and I fill them both twice a day, so I get a gallon of water, and I kind of know where I'm at throughout the day, so that just keeps it simple for me to be able to get enough water throughout the day. So I've planned ahead and done that. So keep things simple, and then seek to get a work situation that really honors your energy levels and honors all of your energetic needs. So thank you, Julie, for sharing. We would love an update from you when you get a chance on how today went being back at work. So hopefully you're doing well. Andy, what a fascinating experiment. Sensory overload baby here. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, definitely. So there was a massive difference between me and some of my siblings. A couple of us were very sensory overload. Some were underwhelmed, and I could totally see it in the activities that we chose to do. So yeah, it's so good to be aware of, and to know that it's not like it is funny, because if someone is more on the narcissistic end of the scale, they don't have a problem setting boundaries or standing up for themselves, or asking for a promotion, or promoting themselves, or whatever. So then they look at empaths, and they think that empaths just don't want it as much, or aren't willing to work for it, or whatever, don't have the self-confidence, and that's not really true. That's not necessarily true. And then the extrovert might be better at building relationships at work, and also getting themselves promoted and recognized and seen and awarded, and they think that the introvert just isn't as committed, or is more lazy, or whatever, and that's not true. And then the sensory underwhelmed person is gonna like compare themselves, like, I want to skydive and ride roller coasters, and who's got the guts to go with me? And that's not necessarily the case. That's not what's happening either. So so it's really helpful to be more understanding of who we are and what makes us who we are, and have compassion on those dynamics, and not assume that everything is down to character flaws, which a lot of times people are quick to assume. So don't do that to yourself. Trust yourself, and know that you know how to live your best life, and that the way you want to live your best life is the best option for you. So, and there's no one that you need to be accountable to for that, because you are responsible for you. So that was all the comments and all the content for today. Thank you for being here. If you're watching the replay, please interact, comment, give your feedback. Would love to have that. So love you guys, and talk to you soon. Have a good week.